Letter 23, a brief for the defendant. Tell the friend who is so anxious lest I do you harm by writing with your hand, that matter was thoroughly threshed out on this side between the teacher and me before it began to take form on your side. Ordinary mediumship, where the organism of a more or less unhealthy person on earth is opened indiscriminately for the entrance and obsession of any passing spirit, good or evil, is a very different proposition from this. Here I, who was your friend in the world, having passed beyond, reach back to instruct you from my greater knowledge on this side. I am not making any opening in your nervous system through which irresponsible and evil forces can enter and take possession of you. In fact, if any spirit, good or bad, should make such an attempt, he would have to reckon with me, and I am not powerless. I know now, have both remembered and been taught, secrets by which I can protect you from what is generally known as mediumship. Furthermore, I advise you never, even at the urgent prayer of those whose loved ones have gone out, never to lend yourself to them. The wanderers in the so-called invisible world have no right to come and demand entrance through your organism merely because it is so constituted that they could enter. Any more than a street crowd would have the right to force its way into your home merely because its members were curious, hungry, or cold. Do not allow it. Permission was once given, yes, but the case was exceptional and was not based on the personal desire or curiosity of anybody, not even yourself. I doubt if permission will ever be granted again. Many things have changed since I began to write with you. At first I used your hand and arm from the outside. Sometimes, as you remember, with such force as to make them lame the next day. Then, grown more familiar with the means at my disposal, I tried another method, and you noticed a change in the character of the writing. It began clumsily with large and badly formed characters, gradually becoming clearer, as my control of the instrument I was using was better established. Now, for the last few times, I have used still another and a third method. I enter your mind, putting myself in absolute telepathic rapport with your mind, impressing upon your mind itself the things I wish to say. In order to write in this way, you have to make yourself utterly passive, stilling all individual thought and yielding yourself to my thought. But that is no more than you do every day. In reading a fascinating book, you give your mind to the author, who leads you along, rapt and passive, by means of the printed page. These experiments in perfecting a way of communication have been very interesting to me. Tell your friend that I am not a child nor a reckless experimentalist. Not only in my last life on earth, but in many former lives, I have been a student of the higher science, giving myself absolutely to truth and to the quest of truth. I have never wantonly used any human being to his or her detriment, and I certainly shall not begin with you, my true friend and student. Nor shall I interfere in any way with your life or with your studies and work. The idea is nonsensical. While I walked the world on 2 feet, I was never considered a dangerous man. I have not changed my character merely by changing my clothes and putting on a lighter suit. I have certain things to say to the world. At present, you are the only person who can act as amanuensis for me. This is neither my fault nor yours. The question before us is not whether I want the letters written, or even whether you want to write them, but whether they will be beneficial to the world. I think they will. You think they may be? B thinks that they are not only immensely valuable, but unique. So and so and so and so have doubts and fears. I cannot help that, nor can you. Bless their hearts. Why should they be so anxious to bolt the doors behind me? I shall certainly not try to run their affairs for them from this side. They are equal to their job, or they would not be able to hold it. But this is quite a different job, which I have given myself, and you have kindly consented to help me. You may not get much reward for your labor, save the shake of the wiseacres' heads and their superior smiles, and the suggestion of the more scientifically inclined that I am your own subconscious mind. I shall not be offended by that hypothesis, nor need you. Of course you are not worried, for if you were, I could not write. Your mind has to be placid, as a lake on a windless night, in order for me to write it all. Give my love to them. Letter 24, Forbidden Knowledge. I have been doing many things of late. You could never imagine where I went the other day. To the great funeral of the Emperor of Japan. You could not go from Paris to Japan and return in so short a time, could you? But I did. An hour before starting, I did not even know that the Emperor of Japan was dead. The teacher sought me out and invited me to go with him. He said that something would occur there which I ought to see. His prophecy was verified. I saw a soul, a great soul, go out as a suicide. It was sad and terrible. But as I write this, the teacher comes and stands beside me. He advises me to say no more on that subject. One sees horrible things out here, as well as beautiful things. I can only say with regard to suicide that if men knew what awaits those who go out by their own hand, they would remain with the evil that they know. I am sorry I cannot tell you more about this, for it would interest you. The testimony of an eyewitness is always more convincing than the mere repetition of theories. The appearance of the teacher with his advice has put out of my mind for the moment the desire to write, but I will come again.
Later.
I have been able to do what you so much desired, to find the boy who came out accidentally by drowning. As you looked at his photograph, I saw it through your eyes and carried away the memory of the face. I found him wandering about, quite bewildered. When I spoke to him of you and said that you had asked me to help him, he seemed surprised. I was able to give him a little aid, though he has a friend here, an old man who is nearer to him than I could ever be. He will gradually adjust himself to the new conditions. You had better not try to speak with him. He is on a different path and is being looked after, for he has friends. The little help I was able to give was in the nature of information. He needed diversion from a too pressing thought, and I suggested 1 or 2 ways of passing time, which are both agreeable and instructive. You wonder at the expression, passing time? But time exists out here. Wherever there is sequence, there is time. There may come a time when all things will exist simultaneously, past, present, and, shall we say, future? But so long as past, present, and future are more or less distinct, so long time is. It is nothing but the principle of sequence. Did you fancy it was anything else? Interiorly, that is, deep within the self, one may find a silent place where all things seem to exist in unison. But as soon as the soul, even there, attempts to examine things separately, then sequence begins. The union with the all is another matter. That is, or seems to be, timeless, but as soon as one attempts to unite with, or to be conscious of things, time is manifest. Letter 25, A Shadowless World. I had been here some time, before I noticed one of the most marked peculiarities of this world. One night, as I was passing slowly along, I saw a group of persons approaching me. It was very light where they were, because there were so many of them. Suddenly, as I saw this light, a thought came to my mind, a saying from one of the Hermetic books, "Where the light is strongest, there are the shadows deepest." But on looking at these men and women, I saw that they cast no shadows. I hailed the nearest man. You must remember that this was soon after I came out, and when I was still more ignorant than I am now. And I called his attention to this peculiar phenomenon of a shadowless yet brilliantly lighted world. He smiled at my surprise and said,
"You have not been here long, have you?"
"No."
"Then you are not aware that we light our own place? The substance of which our bodies are composed is radiant. How could our forms cast shadows when light radiates from them in all directions?"
"And in the sunlight?" I asked.
"Oh,"
he answered.
"You know that in the sunlight we cannot be seen at all. The light of the sun is coarse and crude, and it puts out the light of the spirits."
Does it seem strange to you that at this moment I can feel the warmth of that wood fire by which you sit? There is a magic in burning wood. The combustion of coal has quite a different effect upon the psychic atmosphere. If one who had always been blind to visions and insensible to the finer feelings and premonitions of the invisible world would try meditating before a blazing wood fire for an hour or two every day or night, his eyes and other subtler senses might be opened to things of which he had theretofore never even dreamed. Those Orientals who worship their god with fire are wise and full of visions. The light of burning wax has also a magical effect, though different from that of a wood fire. Sit sometimes in the evening, with no light but that of a solitary candle, and see what visions will come from the void. I have not told you anything for a long time about the boy Lionel. He is now much interested in the idea of choosing a family of engineers, in which to be born again. The thought is one to which he is always returning. "Why are you in such a hurry to leave me?" I asked him the first time he mentioned the subject.
"But I do not feel as if I should be leaving you altogether,"
he replied.
"I could come out to you in dreams."
"Not at first," I told him. "You would be prisoned and blind and deaf for a long time, and you might not be able to come out to me here until after I had also gone back again to the earth."
"Then why not come along with me?"
he asked.
"Say, Father, why shouldn't we be born as twins?"
The idea was so absurd that I laughed heartily, but Lionel could not see where the joke came in.
"There are such things as twins,"
he said seriously.
"I knew a pair of twin brothers when I lived in Boston."
But when I return to Earth, it is no part of my plan to be anybody's twin. So I tell Lionel that if he wants to enjoy my society for a time, he will have to stay quietly where he is.
"But why can we go back together?"
he still asks.
"And be cousins or neighbors at least?"
"Perhaps we can," I tell him, "if you do not spoil everything by an unseemly haste." It is strange about this boy. Out in this world, there is boundless opportunity to work in subtle matter, opportunity to invent and experiment. Yet he wants to get his hands on iron and steel. Strange. Some night, I will try to bring the boy to pay you a visit, so that you can see him. I mean, just before you fall asleep. Those are the true visions. The ones which come in sleep are apt to be confused by the jarring of the matter through which you pass in waking. Do not forget the boy. I have already told him how I come and write with your hand, and he is much interested.
"Why couldn't I operate a telegraph in that way?"
he asked me, but I advised him not to try it. He might interrupt some terrestrial message which had been sent and paid for. Occasionally I take him with me up to the pattern world. He has a little model of his own there with which he amuses himself while I am examining other things. It is the model of a wheel, and he sets it going by the electricity of his fingers. No, it is not made of steel, not as you know steel. Why, what you call steel is too heavy. It would fall through this world so fast that it would not even leave a rent behind it. You must understand that the two worlds are composed of matter, not only moving at a different rate of vibration, but charged with a different magnetism. It is said that two solid objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. But that law does not apply to two objects, one of them belonging to your world and the other to ours. As water can be hot and wet at the same time, so a square foot of space can contain a square foot of earthly matter and a square foot of etheric matter. No, do not quibble about terms. You have no terms for the kind of matter that we use here, because you do not know anything about it. Lionel and his electric wheel would both be invisible to you if they were set down on the hearthrug before you, at this moment. Even the magic of that wood fire would not make them visible, at least not in the daylight. Some evening, but we will speak of that at another time. I must go now.